My name is Louis Wooten. I'm currently the director of the Mission Operations Laboratory and the engineering director here at Marshall Space Flight Center. Our Mission Operations Lab is primarily focused on the International Space Station, payload operations, and integration. Our job is to integrate all the research with payload developers from around the globe to ensure that their research is conducted in a very timely and efficient manner. So our group works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. As long as space station is up there and crew is up there, we are in the Payload Operation Integration Control Center here at Marshall. So that's the primary focus. We also are beginning to develop the SLS Engineering Support Center, which is a center set up for the designers of the SLS when we do launch and flight operations for SLS. So we will support the team at KSC and the flight control team at JSC as we launch SLS. So our group is extraordinarily busy. We also have some very small projects that we're doing mission operations on. We plan to do the one for ISAT and also one of the secondary payloads that will fly on the Expedition Mission 1 for SLS called the Neo Scout. My education, well, I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics, and what we call it pure mathematics, from the Fort Valley State University in Fort Valley, Georgia. And following that, I spent 2 years teaching high school mathematics. That was in the sort of the mid to late 70s in a place called Thomaston, Georgia. After that, I went to graduate school through the Atlanta University, which is now called Clark Atlanta University. Those two universities merged together, I think sometime in the 90s. And I have a master's degree in applied mathematics from Clark Atlanta University. And after completing that degree in 1980, I became a member of the Marshall Space Flight Center team. Started in the orbital mechanics branch here. And that was a little less than a year before we actually had the first space shuttle flight. You know, I grew up in South Georgia on a farm, you know, as a kid, and this was in the 60s. And back then, you know, schools wasn't integrated. I was one of the first students to integrate a school that I went to. And, but I never forget this Sunday afternoon. And it, you know, it's hot, humid. You know, on Sunday afternoons, you know, generally after we go to church and have dinner, you know, me and my cousins and brothers and sisters spend all our time out in the car pasture playing softball, you know, having fun. But I never forget, on this given day, I wasn't out there with them. I was inside of the house, glued to a TV set. No air conditioning, you know, whatever, but no one did have it back then. And I never forget that day, because that was July the 21st, 1969. And that was the day that man landed on the moon. That touched me in a very, very special way back then. So that was in the afternoon that he finally landed, and, you know, it touched down on the moon. And it was later, maybe about 9 o'clock that evening, when Neil Armstrong actually stepped out of the lunar module. So my folks say, hey, you know, you need to go to bed. You know, we've got to get up tomorrow. We got to go to work, because we work in the fields during the day, and you got to get up for sunrise and all that kind of thing. But anyway, I got up the next day, and, you know, I was out there, whatever we was doing out in the fields and things, and I'm looking up in the sky, not paying attention to what I'm doing, because I'm thinking about what in the world they're doing up there on the moon right now. And I remember saying to myself, you know, gee, man, how it'd be great to be a part of that. But from where I was at that time, kind of get emotional telling this, but you know, being a part of that was about as far as the moon itself. It just wasn't in the plan. But I said that. And I never forget, it was 1980, April the 14th. I came through the gate 9, but that was the day that I was starting my NASA career. And it looked like there was some big time warp in between. I asked for that, and now it was happening. Did I do anything specific, special to make that happen? You know, I don't think so. I just was. And I remember saying to myself, because it dawned back on me, I said, thank God that dreams come true. So, when I got here, I didn't think that I got here on my own. I had a specific purpose of being here. That changed my whole attitude about being here. Like, oh, well, you know, no, you're here for a mission. You was here. So the thing that I said to myself, do not mess this up, because it is a gift. And it has been a gift ever since. I remember, you know, applying for a job because Bob Sherney saying that they was hiring, and I filled out an application, turned it in, and I didn't hear anymore. You know, eventually I got an offer in the mail without an interview. I said, you know, there was other jobs I was getting ready to come out of graduate school. I interviewed other companies, they offered me positions, but this one just said, on this date, would you accept a position at Marshall Space Flight Center at this grade? And so, I felt that, hey, I'm supposed to be here. I want not to mess this up, and because it was something that I asked for, and it was given to me. And there was people will say, well, you know, you may have a hard time at NASA because people are not going to accept you and all of those things, and, you know, you have a difficult time. But that was completely the opposite when I got here. I met some wonderful people. They took me under their wings. I worked hard, they respected that, and they really helped me along the way. So it was a great group of people, and this whole NASA career that I've been in has been one heck of a ride. But it all started back on that hot summer day. January the 21st, 1969. I think about 1,700 hours when man landed on the moon. And I asked to be here.
Wow.
So that's it.
That's amazing. That's great. I don't mean to interject religion here, but that's the hand of God.
It is gift, so it's basically based on asking, it should be given. But when it's given to you, you need to honor that gift, respect that gift, not to squander that gift. The state of STEM in America today is not where we need to be. And even in the African American community, it is even worse. You know, there's some facts out there on the Department of Education website that's got a lot of interesting statistics about where we are going with respect to STEM. What I can say is that, you know, creativity, innovation, you know, through STEM is going to be the driving force, the force that really moves the American economy. And as I said, that when I say moving the American economy, I am talking about that four-letter word called jobs. So if we don't engage in these STEM's activities, we are going to be left behind. So it's extraordinarily important that how our future economy, how we grow as a group, that is affected by our involvement in the STEM activities. So I know that President Obama, when he started, he realized that we needed to create over I don't know how many million STEM jobs in order to basically look at the American economy where it would be in 2022. Now, some investments have been made there to try to make that happen. I think he put over $850 million in STEM education. And actually, there have been some positive results, but they still are lagging for where we need to be. Like, for instance, the African-American community probably make up 11% of the workforce. And they only make up about 4% of the STEM workforce. Now, that's an improvement when in the 1970s, it was like 2%. But it still is not comparative, where the overall is not representative of the population of where that group is. So STEM is extraordinarily important, and it is important to our economy, and it is important how we play into the future economy. But we need to change the stigma around STEM. You know, people say, well, we don't study that stuff because it's hard. Well, you know, if you tell young people something is hard, it will be hard. I remember when I played basketball in high school, there used to be a poem we used to recite. It's all in a state of mind. And it was kind of one of the things they said, if you like to win but don't think you can, the more than there's a chance that you won't. It's all in the state of mind. So the thing is that we have to teach our young people that it is not hard. You know, and I remember teaching high school mathematics, and I taught actually 25 years part-time at Alabama A&M University. I taught calculus, and one of those things I would hear consistently, why do I need to learn this stuff? I'm never going to use this anywhere. And I think that I used to say, well, learning mathematics will help change how your brain is wired, how you think about things. It will change the way you look at things. Learning science and technology, those things change the wiring diagrams in your mind, and therefore it makes you become more of a problem solver and an innovator. Whether you use that or not, but it is how you condition your mind. So at a very early age, you know, our young people minds need to get conditioned to think scientifically, to think mathematically. You know, I was looking at, like in China, they were saying that, well, America has made some progress. Our 10th graders now are performing at the same level that third graders in China are performing with respect to mathematics. So you can't tell me third graders in China who could develop a mathematical, you know, capability, and that now our 10th graders are doing it, that we can't do the same. It's not about the level of difficulty, it's about that. You know, some of STEM is just marketing too. How we actually market STEM? How do we let people know that it's now sexy and exciting, this thing to go into? You know, there used to be a thing when I was I remember there used to be a whole study about how you deal with math and anxiety. That is the fear of math. So many young people have developed math anxiety based on their first exposure to it. Who was that first teacher that taught me this? And a lot of times in elementary school, teachers are generalists. You know, they teach all subjects. And they have to teach some mathematics, but they have an anxiety about it themselves, and they pass that anxiety on a lot of time to our young people. So there's things that we need to do. The African American community is still lagging in this, even though, yeah, we're making some progress, but it still has a long way to go. And even though 27% of the African Americans who do study STEM are learning in it from historically black colleges and universities. Even though historically black colleges and universities only make up 3% of the universities in the country, they are producing 20% of the African American STEM program. All of those things that need to be paid attention to, and these things need to change, because our future economy is based upon our ability to innovate, our ability to create, and our ability to solve real challenging problems. And STEM is a requirement in order to do that. I think STEM, like anything, it starts in the home, and it starts early. And it beginning to make children and young people comfortable with certain things. Young people are incredible. Their ability to learn and to adapt and to pick up things is amazing. Their minds are like sponges. They grab these things relatively quick. I've seen like 6 months old, 7 months old baby working an iPhone. They know how it works. It's intuitive. They just grab it and go. All of this technology. So it just depends on how the steps is, okay, how do we make learning STEM, how do we make it fun? And I remember my granddaughter that, she started, reading around the age of 3. And, it wasn't because, hey, that it was, she was any special or anything, that the things we played and the games we did in a part of her fun process, as part of what she enjoyed doing. And learning became a part of that, okay? So we start early, take steps. Then we have to make sure that as they enter elementary school and middle school, that we have a curriculum that is designed to promote this kind of thinking and learning, okay? And we have to market it in such a way and the message it in such a way that they actually gravitate toward it. Young people, I look at them, they can pick up a brand new video game, whatever, and they go. They can grab these things and go just rapidly, okay? And so it's how we actually give them a little more insight on the things behind the technology they're using, for them to understand it, and that is start changing how they mentally think about things. I don't want to call it brainwashing, but it's conditioning the mind, changing the wiring in the brain, to think a certain way, to look at things systematically, to look at how we solve problems and how we actually, do that. Those are the steps, and as they get through middle school and high school, so often by the time you get to high school, if you haven't done a certain amount of things, you actually have written off a lot of things, and it becomes kind of a little late then to change it. So our colleges also how we set our curriculums and how we do things, and I remember my nieces and nephews. My niece would make straight A's, because it was important to her to make straight A's. It was a sense of pride. Her brothers, who was extraordinarily smart, didn't see the value of making straight A's. I mean, what does that do for me? It's not fun, okay? It's not entertaining to me. For her, it was just, hey, to make straight A's and to get the ribbons and the little things, that was important to her. To them, that wasn't important to them because I'm not having fun doing that. So the key is how we can make learning and relate and how kids learn differently, fun or more acceptable or more enjoyable. So as we move forward, and then we'll end up creating more of those going to college, taking these certain classes, and they won't say, well, I don't want to be an engineer, I don't want to be a physicist because that's hard. I'm not saying they all need to be scientists, physicists, mathematicians, engineers. All jobs are important, but I do not want someone not taking a job or going into a field because they think it's hard. They need to go into a field based on what they really want to do, not what they think is easier to do. I must admit, my parents was great mentors. They wasn't educated people, but they believe in hard work. They believe in committing yourself and doing that. But I remember when I integrated to school in the late 60s, my school was small, and I didn't have a black teacher in high school. There wasn't one in my high school the whole while. So the teachers were fine, but, we really didn't have a close connection. So after that, I went through a historically black college and university, and that was my first time actually seeing a lot of black professionals, being from the rural and whatever. And I never forget this person because this person played such a key role in my life. She was the chairman of our mathematics department. Her name was Dr. Richie White. And she used to tell people, this is my adopted son. And and I really believe that I haven't gotten a job or anything, or I remember early on that she didn't play a role in. I believe she had a significant role in me getting a job at NASA without an interview. It's just, or when I went to graduate school, she made sure that the application was filled out, and she filled out part of it. She just basically said, this is what I want you to do. Now, maybe God put it in my path to guide me and lead me, and she pushed me extremely hard. She taught me a lot of things that a little boy from the country just didn't know about life, how to behave here, how to go there, all of those sorts of things. And I remember she said that, look, you have the confidence to know the things that you do not know, but to learn the things that you don't know. There's things that you don't know, and be okay with that. But never put yourself in a situation and say, I can learn the things that I do not know. And that is about confidence. So don't be fearful of this or fearful of that. A lot of things in life you don't know. Fine. But what keeps you from learning those things if you want to? You can't believe something is too hard for you to learn or know. There's books out there, there's people out there, hey, it's all about how you view the world. So she was an extraordinary mentor and helped me with a lot of things. And the way I ended up at NASA was I was in graduate school, and the dean of the graduate school, she called, I got a call one morning because Mr. Schroeder used to talk to the dean of this old school at Fort Valley I went to. They was good friends. And he said that Marshall Space Flight Center is hiring. And do you have some students down there that are interested in, that can apply for a job, And he told her, and she said immediately, yeah, Lewis is up at graduate school. He's about to get out. And she said, call him. I called Mr. Schroeder, and Mr. Schroeder said, fill out a 171 form, do this, make sure you address the things that you've had, and such and such. I did all of that, then all of a sudden, it was later that I got an offer without an interview. So I met Mr. Schroeder when I got here. Mr. Schroeder is an amazing man. He actually was the chief designer of the tires that goes on the lunar rover. He actually basically said that they needed a design that was very lightweight, flexible, and yet and still, I could go across the surface. He said these steel bands with aluminum wire mesh would be a solution, and he was actually the chief designer for that. He also designed the waste disposal system that we actually use on Skylab. That is kind of determine how we use a toilet in space. And he verified that works, with a KC-135 aircraft where they do 0G, that it actually worked. That same system the concept was used on the space shuttle, and it's also used on the International Space Station today. So I didn't work with Mr. Schroeder directly, but he's the reason that I got to the Marshall Space Flight Center. But once I came to the Marshall Space Flight Center, I was in the orbital mechanics branch, and I worked with a very brilliant man named Dr. Larry Mullins. And he actually taught me a whole lot about orbital mechanics and about these things, and we became a great partnership because I know how to write computer software. We know how to solve equations, and I could understand all of the equations, and then I can turn that into software. Then I end up teaching him how to write software, and we did a lot of wonderful things. So, but he's the one that I think that, from a technical perspective, mentored me and got me where I'm going. He alleviated all those things that people say that people wouldn't embrace you, people wouldn't support you, and that was completely opposite. So, no, Larry wasn't an African American. Mr. Schroeder was, but there's been others that actually has been a great benefit to me. Mr. Axel Roth was one of them. Miss Carolyn Griner was one of them. Miss Ann McNair is one of them. A lot of those people have been actually amazing and very supportive, through my career. I look at it this way, and I didn't really want to teach high school mathematics, yeah. But at the time, it was a job that I needed. But I'm a strong believer in you get the things that you need to. It's not about what you want, but what you need. So I look at every situation I'm in as an opportunity. Okay, I'm here for a reason. What am I to bring, and what am I to receive? There's always those things there. I'm here for a reason. I'm either here to give something, I'm here to receive something, or both. So don't, shy away from it. And actually, I enjoyed it much more than I thought I ever would. It's the same thing that works with projects and things how you start out things makes a difference. You don't have to go in and be a bully or be whatever, but you need to go in being prepared. You need to make sure that you have a handle on the situation. And then that's That starts the framework to build on. We don't have that much of that problem here in the professional world because most professionals come in there. But I learned that, hey, get control of your classroom, get control of it early. They may think you're being a little rigid up front. Establish rules, stick by them, enforce them. Then after a while, things will go better. And I learned that a lot. Then once you get that kind of level of control of your classroom, then you can begin to teach. Then learning begin to take place, because that's why you're there. Not to be a disciplinarian, but to teach. Because basically, you know, the reason so many people don't do it is because, you know, of what it pays. You know, it's just, I mean, I taught part-time as an obligation at Alabama University for 25 years, and people say, well, what did you? Well, I promised Dr. White, who actually mentored me throughout the life, because she had this goal for me was get your PhD, go eventually become a dean at a university, and maybe become president of some college or something. That was her goal. That was her drive. She was driving me down that path. And when I got ready to leave Atlanta University, I had a job there, and they said, well, I said, no, I really don't want to go back to school right now. I want to apply some of this stuff I know. So we'll get you enrolled in the PhD program at Georgia Tech, and you can teach here. I said, that sounds wonderful, but I really want to see how this stuff really works in the real world. Got here, I got excited, then, but out of obligation to her, I said, I promised I would teach, so I went and taught Alabama A&M for like part-time. That itself too, and some of the people I taught work out here today, and it was more beneficial actually to me doing that than it actually was an obligation I was meeting her. You know, teaching at the college level is different, but than the teaching in the high school. I mean, because you don't have to worry about as much about getting control of your classroom first. I mean, they're paying to be here, okay? So, fine. But yet and still, that connection back to students and teaching. I will say this, and I've heard it, and this is a true fact. You never learn anything until you have to teach it. The best way to learn something is teach something. And that, to me, gave me a sort of a platform and an insight to young people and to teaching a subject and learning from them. They gave me as much as I gave them.